We're back.
It's your mom, friends. I'm Chrissy.
And I'm Jess, and we are two moms passionate about helping women fuel their minds, care for themselves, strengthen their relationships, and create lives they truly love.
Each week, we bring you honest conversations, practical tools, inspiring stories, real life strategies to help you navigate motherhood, marriage, personal growth, and everything in between.
Whether you're listening while folding laundry, sitting in the school pickup line, or finally enjoying a few quiet moments to yourself, we're so glad you're here.
So grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and let's dive in to today's episode.
Let's get started. We have a special guest here today. Robin, we are so grateful that you took the time to join us. Will you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure. Thank you, Chrissy and Jess, for having me. I really appreciate that. My name is Robin Savidge, and I am a personality and performance expert with Let's Rise Academy, the founder and owner of Let's Rise Academy. I come from New Jersey and I have spent, 31 years or so as an educator, coaching and mentoring students, women, businesses all along the way, which has been a total joy. But 3 years ago, I decided to leave my dry erase markers in the classroom and stepped away and decided to create Let's Rise Academy so I can impact teenagers on a deeper level. So currently, I get to run some amazing programs that help our teens grow, develop leadership skills, to just step into who they're really meant to be. And along with that, I get to help families as well, because it definitely takes a village when we're raising our kids. And it definitely is nice to be able to come alongside families and help support them in this whole process and just helping these young people step into adulthood just confident and capable and knowing that they can make an impact in the world around them.
That is so awesome. And I'd love to dive more into that, but I'm curious, when you were a teacher, tell me, like, what grades did you teach? Were you in a high school? Like, what did that look like for you? I'm curious how you kind of transitioned into working with teens.
Yeah. I taught middle school for part of my 31 years, but most of my career was spent teaching high schoolers. And the cool thing about it was I got to see the ins and outs of so many different things relating to teens, the middle schoolers, how they were growing and developing and trying to figure life out. Then approaching high school, how things change, when they get to high school as well, was also important to note. I noticed that these young people didn't always feel like they had a purpose as teenagers. So that was something that really stood out for me, just being able to help guide them through these areas and realize that they could figure things out on their own, that they actually could have an impact on the world around them, which was not something that teenagers tend to think about. They really think that, oh, well, when I'm older, I'll figure these things out. But it was really neat to see them learn these things when they were young. So that's how I ended up transitioning to working with teens full time, because they've been a big part of my life. I just love working with them. They have so much to offer, and it's just really nice to be able to support them in that.
I love all of this because I think we as parents, like you have children yourself,
Yes.
as parents, it's this innate fear. Like, am I preparing them enough? Or am I instilling in them what they need to be successful? Like, if I look back, like when I was a teenager, I didn't, it was very much the here and now, like my friends, my sports, what I was doing this weekend, like not much of like, what am I going to do in this world was thought about, nor was it like brought up about. If you think about like what's taught in schools, I don't know that there's enough of like real life, what they're going to encounter, what we're going to, the real life skills that they're going to need to be successful in life. Like there's those jokes like you see on Facebook or Instagram that are like, well, thank God I know what, MX plus B is, but I have no idea how to do my taxes, or I have no idea, like, and I don't think that there's enough mental health preparation for like when life gets tough and what you're going to go out. And let's be honest, like teenagers deal with a lot of mental health changing. Do they understand what it's like going through like healthy relationships, going through breakups, like making college choices? Like I chose what I want to do with my life at 17. Well, newsflash, it didn't work out. I didn't want to do what I ultimately. So there's so much changes that go on during that period of life. As a mom now, I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I prepare this kid for to be able to successfully go through these difficult situations or make these choices and come out on top, like come out a success, come out like he's gonna go through trials and tribulations. But I want him to understand the importance of mental health and taking care of himself and making good choices and those type of things. And it's like, my gosh, like if it's not, it has to start here. It has to start at home. It has to start with us. And what do I do? How do I do that? Like we talk all the time about these kids don't come with manuals. We need the tools in our toolboxes to be able to do this. And I just got off a call with a friend of mine, literally before I got on this one, where she expressed that like my biggest fear is the unknown of the future for my kids. And am I doing enough to prepare them to be successful? And so I love what you've done with the Let's Rise Academy. I want you to talk about what you do in the Let's Rise Academy, because I think there are teenage parents, preteen parents, like Briley's a preteen. Like, I want to know this stuff now. Like, what do we do to help almost like I want to help prepare these kids, but I also want to give myself a sense of peace that I'm doing what I can to help them.
Sure, absolutely. Like I said, it is definitely a very challenging thing and it's weighty when you think about it, right? We're raising these young people to become adults and hopefully be fulfilled and, be able to be productive and things of that nature. So, yeah, it's definitely challenging. With Let's Rise Academy, we have many different ways that we work with teenagers. My motto is I want to impact teens directly or indirectly. And that means I may work with teenagers in coaching sessions. We have group leadership programs that we do online. We have, workshops. I had a wonderful opportunity just a couple of weeks ago to be the guest speaker at our local Rotary Youth Leadership Conference, which was wonderful. I mean, it's 150 teenagers that I got to speak to, and we talked about personality and how it impacts leadership. So I do a lot of work relating to personality because that impacts so many things. When students get to understand how they're wired, it changes everything. They feel that they no longer need to compare themselves to somebody else because they realize this person's wired one way, I'm wired another. And that also allows me to impact families because oftentimes we have things that come up in our families, right? If you have
Mhm.
multiple children, we all know they're not all the same. What works with one may not work with the other. And that has a lot to do with how each one is wired and being able to come alongside families and just help them to see the differences that they each have. And those differences, it's not just, oh, well, this one likes, tacos and this one prefers pizza. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about on a deeper level, what to the point where one child may receive encouragement one way and another child receives it totally different. So you could say the same thing to two children and it comes across differently because how each one is wired. And so that's always like an eye opener for parents because once they understand, then that's when connection really happens. And I'm very big on that connecting piece because I feel like ultimately our goal as parents, yes, we want our children to be, well established in what they're going to do and, give them the right things. But we also want to create a scenario where our children grow up and they are still connected to us as well, because that is where they continue to grow and we get to continue to have impact with them. So personality is a huge thing with what I do with teens and families.
I think that's brilliant because it not only gives them insight for themselves, but insight to others. And so, what I hear you saying too is working with families and understanding how each kid operates. And quite frankly, I mean, maybe taking it a step further, I don't know if you like what it looks like with the family involvement and how deep you work with parents, or is it solely with kiddos, but including parents on that personality and what is their personality and how do they like, how does it all work together? Understanding what their own personality is, what their children's personalities are, and how can you work together as a family based on having that new information. So I think it's quite fascinating because when we understand, as you said, how we're wired, then the comparison game stops because we're just our brain chemistry, we're just different, and that's okay. Different doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think that's another big thing with teenagers too, is sometimes they often equate different as bad and they want to be like the herd. They want to be like everybody else. And once they understand, like, I am my own unique person and I bring value in the way that I function, I think there's a whole other level of self-acceptance and that intrinsic kind of validation and motivation as opposed to the external and wanting to be liked just like everybody else, wanting to be like everybody else. So yeah, I think it's brilliant. And can you tell us a little bit how you do that work with them in terms of personality? Do you do assessments with them? Do you involve the families in that? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's I do all of that actually. There are some times when I'm focused specifically on the student. A lot of times, if I'm doing career coaching, then the student is taking like a student success assessment, and we look at their strengths and their goals and things of that nature, and we work that way. But if it's something specifically, and this has come up recently actually, where there was a little bit of tension in the household, there were a couple of different teenagers in the household, and sometimes things do get a little tense. There seems to be a little bit of a disconnect there. And in those cases, I prefer to have the parents involved because of that, everything you just said, Chrissy. I mean, it's important for the teens to recognize the personalities of their parents and realize that, what, mom is not just harping on me because of whatever that child is thinking, but it's the way that mom sees life based on her personality, and I have a different personality. And it allows for grace to occur because now there's more of an understanding there. And I think that that word is very important, I feel, understanding. When you seek to understand, then change can occur. So it wouldn't be beneficial, in my opinion, to only work with the teens in that type of scenario because we even as parents, we filter things through our personality that we don't even realize. It's just how we've operated for a long time. So we don't even realize that we're expecting, little Johnny to react to something we've said because that's how we would react.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
when we understand that Johnny is reacting based on his own wiring, then we tailor how we present something so that
Mm.
it's received better for Johnny. And that helps to decrease the tension. So that's when I love to have families involved because that's where magic is. I mean, things begin to happen when there's that mutual understanding within the household.
I'm gonna be honest, this is what changed my marriage because I had spent so many years creating resentment because Jimmy is so different than me. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand how he was wired. He's a very detail oriented, like he is very much very organized, things like that. I'm a little more not. And so, like, the way that he would respond and react to things, it would overwhelm me. It would get to a point where I'd be like, "You're giving me too much information," and my hair's standing up and I'm stressing, which would then make me go into this, like, anxious. And so when I understood, when finally started to work on myself and realize how I'm wired, and then realize that, like, he's very different, but that doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean we're not right for each other. It just means that we process information differently, we respond differently, and when we can learn to work together. When we became parents and Deegan's an incredible kid. He truly is. But he's been tough to learn how to be a good parent to from the start. Like, he had milk allergies when he was a baby. It was like, okay, this doesn't work and this formula doesn't work and he's crying and we're doing all this stuff, and like to try and figure out how to parent him best started from a young age. When I started to realize that, like, this kid needs help in school, he doesn't learn the way other kids do, and I thought it was a me problem, and so therefore I'm taking it out on him. Like, we need to read more, we need to do this, we need to do a bit more homework, I need to get him more books, we need to, like, it was a how I was responding. I was taking it out on him instead of learning about how his brain works. And the moment that I let my pride down, like, it was almost a pride thing, like, I'm failing him. Therefore, I need to figure this out, which ultimately created more tension between us. Like, I felt so disconnected from him in that, like, third, fourth grade year because I'm like, and which was also that COVID year where we're home and we're like, what do you mean you don't know what you're doing? Why can't you get this on paper? I went and sat at a school meeting where they were like, let's give him the tools he needs. Like, we need to get him diagnosed. Like, we need to he has ADHD. He has things that are making life difficult for him. And if we give him the tools so that he understands how his brain works, guess what? He's going to thrive because he doesn't have to learn like the other kids do. He doesn't have to learn like you do. He doesn't have to. We need to work to his strengths. And so when you talk about like this understanding each other, it like hits home for me because it truly changed my life. Like when you're in it and you don't know, you just think that's how life is. And you life is tough and you just gotta you grin and bear it and you white knuckle it and you're just trying to figure it out. And yes, life is stressful and we fight and we argue and we just that's what life is. But that's not how life has to be. And when I understood finally like the importance of learning about myself, learning how I operate, learning how I respond, how I react, and it's not the kid's job, it's not Jim's job to make me react a certain way, but it is a requirement for us to learn about each other. And I think that we lose that piece that we should just know, I chose that person, but we're growing. When you're in a relationship for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it's like we're not the same people we were when we were 17. So it's our job to learn about each other. Then you have kids. It's like it's our job to learn about our kids. How do they operate best? How do they work best? I love this work you do. It's life changing. For anybody listening who feels like they're in the grind, like this is one of the best things you could possibly do is make the time, take the time, invest in putting resources in your toolbox to be able to connect with your family. And it starts with connecting with ourselves and understanding ourselves and then learning about these kids, learning about their personalities. My kids are total opposites. When you say that, like my two could not be farther from the difference. So when you say like how when I give correction to one, they totally take it differently. Like they don't take it the same. When I give praise, they don't take it the same. And so it is very different how I parent each kid to try and to their strengths, to their weaknesses versus blanket parenting where I'm just like, it is what like this is how I operate. But it's not. It's like, how can I help build these kids up?
Yes, absolutely. And just to dovetail on that, because we often talk about, how, they may do things differently and like they accept praise differently and correction differently. But something else that we want to think about is that as how do they react to stress?
Yeah.
Because that plays out very differently based on personality also. You know, not everything stresses everyone out. So if you have a teen who, they're not stressed out if things are out of order, that they're fine with that. That is probably part of their wiring, that doesn't stress them out. It may stress you out, mom, if you are one who needs to have everything in perfect order, but that won't stress them out. What might stress them out is feeling like they have no control over some things in their life. And that might be a stressor for them. Where another one of your children, a stressor for them they may feel like they're not being accepted. And that's a personal thing for them. So it's interesting when we talk about personality, how we do have to focus on what the stressors are, what stresses out one child more than the other, and how is that linked to how they see the world? Because that's what personality does. It affects their perspective of everything around them and well, us too, right, as adults, and how they see the world. So that's something to keep in mind too, which is why certain conversations can stress out some children more than others because it's just part of their wiring.
Yeah, for sure. And when you think, and I'm just gonna throw a little something in there, like teenagers are tough. Their brains are not fully developed. Their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. They are not making rational decisions most of the time.
But they
Yeah,
They think
but
they
they think
are.
they are because they know everything. And so you have this like headbutting between the parent and child. And so I mean there's that too. And I think what you offer, Robin, can help a little bit with that. Now I imagine you might have a parent that says, "Yes, Robin, we want to work with you. I think my child could benefit from this." And the child's like, "No, thank you. I want nothing to do with that." Do you face that? And if you do, how do you work through that? Because I anticipate some of our listeners might be like, "Yes, this my kid definitely needs this, but I don't know if he or she would want
be
it."
open to
So
it. Yeah, right.
yeah, so how do you work through that?
Yeah, that's funny that you would say that because I had a recent situation very similar to that. And I wasn't surprised though. I mean, my over 31 years of working with teenagers, I'm full and raising my own, fully aware that
Yeah.
there are those moments where you look at your child and it's like, my goodness, who is this person? This is not who I've been raising. And they will give that pushback, the teens will. Well, what we did in this one scenario, yes, everybody, the parents and the teen particularly, they all took their assessments, but I actually met with the teens separately. And it's an interesting thing how sometimes young people are much more willing to jump into something when it's not the parent who is suggesting it or who is
Yeah.
saying it.
Mhm.
And I'm sure I'm not saying anything differently than any parent would.
Right.
I'm
Mhm.
just a different person. I'm not
Mhm.
in the middle
Mhm.
of the day-to-day drama. So it comes out differently. They receive it a little bit differently. So when there is that situation, I will often suggest, okay, how about I meet with this child, separately? Like I might do the debriefing of, the assessment with them. And the reason I like to do that, after they've taken the assessment and I get to debrief with them, what's happening is I am pouring into them about all the really cool stuff about them, what their strengths are, what they're really good at. And then they begin to feel, this isn't too bad after all. And this particular young lady was much more willing to continue with the rest of our process because she came into it feeling good. I wasn't bashing her about things. We did talk about, every personality has some drawbacks. If you're left, to go uncorrected, they can be problems sometimes. But at the same time, she felt good because somebody acknowledged all of the great things about her personality and she realized she didn't have to change who she was. It was more of how she does things, and then we could process that with the family as a whole.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for feeling seen, heard, and valued. Sorry, Jess, I didn't mean to cut
No,
you
no,
off
you're
there.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that, and I think it sounds like that's what you offered that teenager.
And I
Yes.
think that as a parent, as myself, I know that sometimes I am so like, I need to raise a good kid. I need to do this. And therefore, a lot of times I focus on the drawbacks, the negative things where I'm like, dude, we got to work on this. Dude, we got to work on this. Dude, we got to work on this. Whereas like you come in and you're like, look at all these strengths. Like, and it's like it's a wake up call to me to be like, we can't forget to like enjoy them too. We can't forget to let them know he's an incredible kid. Like he has so many strong suits, so many things about him that like he's gonna do great things. But I think that there's this pressure on myself as a parent to be like, okay, but this, we got to work on this. Okay, but you struggle with it. Okay, we have to work on this. You have to be able to, control your body. You have to be able to think before you speak. You got to make good choice. Like all those things become what he hears all the time because I'm like, I only have so many years. I got to get this in. I have to work on this with him. I have to work on this with him. Not forgetting to like that. I think that might be why they're more susceptible to sitting with a stranger who doesn't, who's not in that constant like parenting mode of we have to work on this, we have to do this. You say to no, like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Is that a good choice? Should we do this? You're like a breath of fresh air to them. You may still be working with them on things. Are still that like person of leadership in their life who are influencing them, but it looks a lot different to them, which as a mom is also a huge blessing to me because I find that like I need that support. I want somebody influential in his life that's like, hey, here's another perspective. Help him learn about himself. I know that I don't always get it all right. I by no means am perfect and I need the support. I need the help to raise good kids. And so the fact that you have that influence on these kids, have the ability to take another angle, I don't think it's a sign of weakness as a parent. It's like that's strength, like being able to say, hey, I need your help. How do we do this?
Hey, I hire a tutor because I don't understand math, right? Like,
Yes.
I stay in my zone of genius. And I think a couple things that you said, Jess, and I'm sure you have something to say, Robin. Sorry, I'll make this quick. One, I often feel like it's a reflection on us as parents if our kids aren't perfect. If they're not doing all the things they're supposed to be doing, I take it as a reflection on me and my lack of parenting skills or abilities and why my kid is acting the way they are. And so if we separate ourselves from that, it's not about me as a parent. It's about really honoring my kid and where they're at and giving them what they need so they can excel. Then I also think a village. It takes a village and having influential people in your child's life can make all the difference. It can be beyond the parent. And in fact, kids do better when they have multiple people in their life to go to when needed. Because I feel like each relationship serves a purpose to some extent. And if a kiddo has something to say and they don't feel comfortable talking to their parent, now all parents want their kids to come to them with everything, but let's be real, it doesn't happen. So if we equip kids with having, the village that they need and the supports in place, they have a safe adult to go to, even if it's not you as their parent. And so I think the work that you do, Robin, in helping kids understand what their needs are, what their strengths are, can really help them prosper and know how to better navigate things.
Just chime in here really quick because I think a lot of times we misunderstand what the village is. Like I work with parents and there was moms and happy moms. There's women that I work with in the reconnect room who are like, I don't have a village when we talk about making time for, parents to have, time together, or in happy moms when it was like, you have to take care of yourself. You have to make time for yourself. Well, I don't have a village. So I think we misunderstand what village is. It's not just family. It's not just a support system when it comes to like the legit care of your children. Like it's not just, hey, can you watch my kid while I go to this? That's not the whole period sentence of what a village is. A village is who we choose to surround our kids with to support them and love them. And that doesn't just mean their physical care. Like Robin is somebody that we can, bring into our village to help support our teens. Like we can choose who our village is. It's not just who we're born with. It's not just the family, because you're right. A lot of people don't have villages. That doesn't mean you can't create one. And a village really needs to encompass like, who do you want surrounding you? Who do you want influencing your kids? And sometimes that means investing in a village to bring around your kids. Like it's not just the people that are in our lives, it's who we want that village to be. So I just wanted to put that in there because a lot of times we do get pushback that like, I don't have a village or my village doesn't show up for me. Well, that's not the village we're talking about. We're talking about the people that we are creating to influence our kids when, they go to somebody, or when we want to influence them to help grow them and truly support them to become the best versions of themselves. Well, that requires more than just us. That requires more than just their grandparents. Like that village is more than just that. So I just wanted to reiterate that because I think a lot of times people misconcept what the village is that we're talking about.
I totally agree with that, Jess. And I love that concept that we get to create the village,
Mhm.
and that's empowering when you think of it that way too. Because I also know when you're in the throes of everything as a parent and, you look around, it's like, I don't have people who support me. That's hard, right? So hopefully that statement alone that we can create our village is empowering enough that will allow you to begin to look up, right? Look up above all the things that are going on and be hopeful that you can create a village for yourself and for your family. Yeah, that's a very important thing to mention. Thank you for that.
Yes,
I
of
think of
course.
coaches, teachers, church, right? Neighbors, all the people that you might surround that you don't necessarily think of right away, that all can be your village, can be your kid's village. So, and I'd like to say, yes, we get to create it. So if you don't have one, what are you going to do about it? What steps are you going to take to create one? To lovingly push back a little bit and say, a village is not going to come to you. I mean, sometimes I guess they do, but most times we have to do the work to find our village. So,
And not be upset. Like there's not this like, well, I have to muscle it out on my own because I don't have a village.
right.
That's not what that's the wrong attitude to or wrong approach to take to it. Like if you don't have a village, then get out there and create that village because our kids need it. We were not created to do this life alone. Like we need that. We need the village. Like for my own peace, because my own anxiety, my own triggers are a part of the problem. And so I need that help. I need that support. I need that peace. I need the village. It's not just for my kids, it's for me. And so, it's not just like, well, God didn't give me a village, so I have to do this on my own. But I'm a mom and I'm going to show up and I'm going to do what I have to for these kids. Like, I think that we think that that's like a badge of honor. Like, I just have to do it. I'm gonna muscle through because that's what moms do. It's truly like humbling ourselves and being like, no, I need a village. I need that support. And if I don't have it, then I'm gonna create it because my kids deserve it. And I'm a better mom because of it.
Yes, that's awesome. And you said that, often parents might say, I'm going to do what I have to for my kids. Well, if we look at the village as being part of that have to, part of that system that's going to be support, not just for us, but for our kids and to help speak life into our families, then it becomes part of that, that have to part, which is important, or we could shift it and say we get to, because
Mhm.
I like that phrase even better than I have to. We don't like to do the things we have to do, but when we look at the things that we get to do, I get to provide this support for my family. I get to provide someone who can speak of the positive things of my kids. I get to provide a village who can encourage me on my down days. That I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that.
Amen. That's awesome.
So Robin, how do people get into your academy? If we have a listener that says we want to work with Robin, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of ways. The main way is through my website, which is letsriseacademy.com. Pretty simple there. You can go there and check out what we have, and we can always schedule like a parent connect call, which would be an opportunity for us to just, have a chat. What are your concerns? What are the amazing things that you know about your teen? What are things that you feel might be a concern for you? We can talk about those types of things and see what type of programming might work best for you. For some, it's just like I said, the private coaching might be what's needed for the teen. Others, it might be something for the whole family, which I usually recommend because, again, I mean, teens don't live on an island, and it's really cool when teens can learn more about their parents because we don't talk about teens learning about their parents. We always talk about the parents learning about their kids. They
Right.
need to learn about their parents too, why does this one comment trigger my dad? And your personalities are clashing, dude. Sorry, but being able for them to understand that in relationships, it's a two-way street, and they need to tailor what they do and say for the parents as well. Life lesson for life after school, too.
Yeah.
And do you have to be in your vicinity to work with you, or you can work with anybody anywhere?
I can work with anyone, anywhere. I do a lot of my work via Zoom, which I love that because it also provides some convenience for the families, even the ones who are in my general location, for them to be able to hop on a Zoom sometimes it's more convenient than to drive somewhere. So, we have those options. If it's just teens, I have my leadership program, which is a wonderful experience for them to connect with other teenagers who are growth minded, who want to develop those soft skills that are needed for life outside of high school. Yeah, that's a very powerful program as well. So, yeah, I definitely encourage any parent to reach out if they want to add something else to their village, someone else to their village. I'd be glad to be a part.
Awesome.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with us on Mom, Fuel, and Mindset. If today's conversation spoke to you, take it as your reminder that happy moms don't come from doing more. They come from choosing themselves and owning their growth.
And if you loved this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mom who needs a little fuel and a mindset shift today.
Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, keep growing forward, and remember, happy moms own their growth.
See you soon.